Chapter 3, The New KS. I'm going to wet my whistle here. I was born. Again. So there I was, at a midwifery center, a wriggling newborn. A couple days limped by, and I alternately sucked, shat, and pissed with no little or control whatsoever. I cried some. Not the wail of a newborn, but the confused weeping of someone dumbfounded by his predicament. At least that's how it sounded in my small head. Soon enough, though, all the cooing and handling and suckling, through all the shitting, pissing, and vomiting, through all the passing around to different relatives and complete strangers, my senses grew stronger. Smell and taste were off the charts. My past life held no memory of such richness. My new vision? Not so much. I couldn't get my eyes to focus. I couldn't make out my fingers, stuff right in front of my face, but that was about it. As my baby hearing became less drunk, I heard a phrase oft repeated. Introducing Keenan Solomon Harris. 9 pounds, 3 ounces, over 18 inches, as big as a salmon. Yeah, this new charmer was my father. Big as a salmon. He must have said that every day for 2 weeks. The invariable response was, Keenan Solomon? Sounds like a black name. Yeah, this is the first hint of the culture awaiting me. Giant, garish faces were thrust at me, making gaga nonsense words, and the smelling of perfume, liquor, cigarettes, coffee, and bad breath. These were primarily Dad, Grandma, and Pop-Pop on Mom's side, and Uncle Joe and Aunt Shelley on Dad's side. Mom didn't have any siblings, and Dad's remaining parent, his father, Edward, was hobbled by dementia back in Boston. I was handed off to and prodded by strangers, doctors, visitors, and all manner of human flotsam to whom parents willingly hand over their little babies. I'd been reborn in hell, a Sartian character struck in a room ripe with the stench of provinciality, quotidian aspirations, and junior college degrees. Unable to run away, unable to form words, unable to escape at all. Straight jacket swaddled in a baby blanket. Holy shit. The only person who didn't baby talk or change her vocal register to me was my new mother. After a day or so, I started to understand a bit of what I was hearing. But sound was rattled and tinny, like a stereo EQ with the treble jacked and the bass missing. A bad cassette recording. One of the first things I noticed was that my new mom, Louisiana, as everyone called her, had something of a southern drawl, gravelly and filtered through a California accent. My dad sounded like he might have originally come from Boston. They called him Drew. All of these things I quickly registered within my short stay at the midwifery. I had a sort of rolling consciousness that I chalked up to my developing brain. My old self might have been reborn inside this new shell, but it was still at the mercy of human biology. About that, human biology. Of course, I realized, even at the hospital, that I shouldn't have been able to think the thoughts I was thinking. A newborn human brain is like a third of the size of an adult's, and it should not be capable of complex thought. Thank you, psych degree. Its cerebral cortex is vastly underdeveloped at that point. But the mysteries of the brain are numberless, and reincarnation wasn't supposed to be scientifically possible, but here I was. On the first morning of my rebirth, I woke to my mother handing me off to a blur that I identified as Dad, and some other guy whose seriousness suggested he was a doctor. They wheeled me away in a plastic crib into another room. A flurry of faces floated above me in surgical masks. Curious, I thought. Dad said, "It's okay. You won't feel a thing." Uh-oh. I felt a sharp something down below, and I couldn't lift my head to see what the hell the doctor was doing down there. There was this tugging feeling. I suddenly thought, holy shit. And by the time I realized I was being circumcised, it was over. I didn't have the time to cry or protest, and the aftermath was not much more painful than, say, I don't know, fucking yourself raw, but with none of the pleasure of getting there. You know what I mean? Yeah. So later that day, as I lay in my mom's arms, a man on the TV delivered the top of the news. This was my biggest revelation yet. Good evening. On this Monday, January 27th, 2025. I began to cry. Lou kissed my head. What is it, honey? 5 years had lapsed. I struggled to turn my head toward the television, but, as mentioned, my neck could not support my head. Had I heard correctly? Was that right? January 27th? I was born yesterday. That meant I had died and was reborn on my old birthday. Exactly 5 years earlier, alone in my house on Potrero Hill. I had died a junkie loser. My new name was Keenan Solomon Harris, KSH. Being reincarnated into my own former initials, and on my former birthday, January 26th, was proof of a higher something. This was a cruel, cosmic prank played on a lifelong atheist and denier of all things supernatural. If I had only known in my old life that death wasn't the end, I could have done away with a shitload of existential dread. But why 5 years? I had been reborn on my birthday in the middling Northern California suburb of Campbell in Santa Clara County, the Silicon Valley. I had been reincarnated 40 miles south of where I had died. Thank you.